It's time for today's Face-Off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now.
I don't want to embarrass this young lady, but she has more Grammys than everyone and never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work. Think about that. The most Grammys, never won Album of the Year. That doesn't work. Some of you don't belong in the category.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
In a fit of complete narcissism, Jay-Z, the billionaire, him and his wife, he's up there with his daughter accepting an honorary award, acknowledges at the Grammys that, in fact, the Grammys organization has given his wonderful wife, a Houstonian and a rare talent. You know, I wouldn't put Jay in my top 5, but he's clearly in the top 20 best rappers of all time. Also a rare talent. Instead of using that to advocate for anything other than themselves, he gets up there and bitches and pisses and whines and insults other artists, saying they shouldn't have even been in the category, and says that he hasn't got enough attention. In fact, he did concede she's gotten more awards than anyone. But he went even further, right? We have our legacy media, our mainstream media, that wants to call everything racism. So all the articles, there's one y'all can look at on NPR, then goes as far as to label the Grammys itself, not the yesteryear's Grammys, right, but the 2024 Grammys as a racist organization. I don't know how you can reconcile that argument with the fact that Beyonce has won more awards than anyone else of all time. This isn't a legit complaint, although the legacy media is treating it like, because everyone it's all just, hey, let's divide people by race, let's call everything racism. It's just him pissing and moaning. It's reminiscent of and I think Kanye, I would argue Kanye, the best hip hop performer of all time, that when he got up there and ruined Taylor Swift's moment, and Taylor Swift makes music that I hate, right? I can't stand it. I think her voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard. I know our producer, Matt Horn, loves her and wants to go see all her shows. I don't get it. I don't get people like that. I think that Kanye and Beyonce and Jay-Z are all far more talented than her. But this was just mean-spirited, selfish narcissism. Instead of taking this really cool-looking black Grammy, and hey, I've got this award, named after, I believe, Dr. Dre, he just wants to whine about, why not us, why not us? Why don't you go get back in your custom-made sailboat tail-end Rolls Royce and go cry all of us people that got to get up and work every damn day a river?
For Brother Jay-Z to come from whence he
came. Why aren't white people ever your brother?
We'll get to that point. But to come from whence he came from absolute poverty. He came from the lowest pits of New York and dug himself out of that hole and has become one of the most successful black entrepreneurs and black artists of all time. I applaud that brother for taking the stage and defending his wife in a manner
who was attacking her?
Will Smith did not do.
They were attacking her with awards?
Let me finish.
Those awful people.
So you
interrupt me all the time. And now that I've decided I'm going to do it back,
white folk learn how to behave.
Okay. That's white folk. That's white folk. So you've been interrupting me for 5 years.
I need to finish.
And I made a decision that I'm going to do it from now on back. Now you're crying, just like Jay-Z crying a river.
Now you white folks throwing tantrums.
It's not white folks. It's just Big Angry. It's just me. No. It's not. There ain't no white people behind me. It's just me.
How many times I got to tell you white folk to behave?
Okay.
Just thuggish behavior.
Okay.
Just savage behavior.
Yes.
Where were you raised? Now get out.
Now
back to what I was saying. Jay-Z, a very talented brother,
he is.
Took the stage and defended, in my opinion, the best female artist of lifetime in America and perhaps around the world. Beyonce has won more Grammys than any other artist.
Right.
But she's never won that particular award which he was discussing. He didn't want to knock Taylor Swift's accomplishments, but he had to point out that the Grammys has work to do, that they have yet to evolve to the point to where they're truly inclusive. For generations, black artists have talked about boycotting the Grammys because they ignored the accomplishments and the talent of black artists. Even when black artists would sell 10 to 5 times more albums and records, they still would not be recognized by the Grammys. The Grammys are not where they need to be, but Jay-Z was calling them out with actual facts. So you may not like what he said. You may want to point out and condemn the brother's success because he had the right to
I'm
speak
not
the truth.
condemning him excessive. I'm
But
condemning
why
him
is
for
it
being a
that every time
narcissistic liar?
a black man or woman speaks the truth and they're successful, first thing white folks say, you ought to shut up because you got money
I didn't tell
and
him
you're
to
successful.
shut up.
Your money and your success as an individual does not rise with the total condition of the masses of your people. So Charles, she
Jay-Z's
deserves the award.
condition. He's
She
probably
should
in
have
a
been
yacht in the
recognized.
Mediterranean right now.
But remember,
and you know what, Jay?
it was a
you
yacht
know,
from a self-made man.
You know, a lot of
Nobody
people,
gave him nothing. He didn't inherit it. He built it from the ground
You
up.
don't think there's white people that have done that? But you're right. In the 60s and 70s, horrible discrimination in the Grammys. Now, we both were.
60s and 70s.
Hold on, we were both born in the early 70s.
What about in the 80s and 90s?
Can I finish?
Even in 1998,
Can I finish?
DMX sold more records than any other artist and wasn't even recognized
Okay,
in
can I
1998. And many black artists, including DMX, boycotted the Grammys because of it.
Now, just for the record, you notice you were interrupting me, and I wasn't crying, and I wasn't
No,
talking
I'm
about.
correcting you, white folk, now.
I wasn't talking about
I'll
black
let you
people
give your
generally.
introduction.
I wasn't being a bigot.
And then I
You
spoke.
see, and that's the thing. You interrupt me all the damn time. Here's the truth.
No, I have to
right?
correct you
We
all the time.
remember in the early '80s Michael Jackson holding that pile of awards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he made accessible pop music, and for years the Grammys ignored music on the fringe, not just black music, right? They still to this day ignore rock music. They give the rock Grammys to classic rock acts, right? They don't look at new rock, they look at grandpa rock, right? Because the Grammys are a BS organization that I don't know why anyone would care about. But it's not, in 2024, it's not racism, right? And you know that. And you want to pretend
It is
it's
not
the
really
60s and the
inclusive
70s.
as it needs to be.
It's
It still
incredibly
has a
inclusive.
lot of work
the
to do
Grammys
and a
is
long way to go.
incredibly inclusive. I know artists, I have artist clients that work for the Grammys organization. And let's talk about Jay-Z, right? Mr. Whiner in Chief, right? Jay,
Mr. Successful Black Man.
Hey, he's still whining.
And you're
right?
envious of that
No,
brother's success.
Not envious.
I can tell.
I get that you want to
Pointing
make this
out that
about
man's
I
success.
get that you want to make
Leave his success alone.
I get that you want to interrupt
He
me
didn't
and make
attain
this
it
about me
illegally.
and not a look. But what I want to talk about is let's look at all the artists around Jay. Let's look at all the people that instead of sharing in royalties, he paid flat fees to. The people that he's pushed out of Rockefeller and his organizations who are now broke. Let's listen to the criticism of Dame Dash and other people, right? I know you want to reduce this to
Clive
Whitey.
Davis?
I know you want to reduce
do you
this
mean
to
Clive Davis?
Whitey, okay? But at the end of the day,
you mean
Jay
Mr. Mottola
Z
and Sony?
oh no, those are all scumbags.
I
The
was
record,
confused. I was
absolutely,
confused.
the record industry is disgusting, and they've
Okay.
exploited artists for years.
For
Jay
generations.
you're right.
There you
But
go.
Jay has as well, right? And no one talks about it because he's a juggernaut of talent, right? Jay is always about Jay, and it makes sense. Being a star like
But
that,
why would you talk
typically
about
have
it
to
and
be a
start with
narcissist.
Jay-Z?
Well, why are we talking about
And
this?
all the
Because you
white ones-
suggested this
Not all
article.
the white
Look at
ones-
you lying to the camera.
No,
you
I'm not.
said you
I
said
did suggest
you
it.
So you want to talk about it, but
the
you want to act
music
like I'm.
industry thieves are the big white boys,
You
not
want to
Jay-Z.
act like we're on TV
That
talking
man
about it
ain't
because I
being
want
no
to
sinner
attack
like
him.
the white folks
You
in the music
suggested this, and all you've
In the
done is say,
music
"Hey,
industry.
Whitey,
In the
hey,
music
Whitey,
industry.
hey, Whitey," and all
Yeah, in
you
the
white
music
people
industry.
know.
Hey, Whitey.
Jay was being a damn crybaby, and you don't have the balls to
stood up
call him
for his
out.
wife and
no,
spoke the
he
truth.
had being a damn crybaby.
Calm down, Mr.
No,
Crazy
you
Guy.
calm down.
But Natalie, Jay Watson raped you. You think I forgot? How could I? This entire trial has been an exercise in reminding me.
And this is your chance to do something about it.
I am going to. Believe me. Because I can. I can afford therapy. I have that luxury. And maybe one day I'll be okay. But if that teenager goes to prison, he may not be. Ever.
In this round, here's Quanell X.
Charles, I really just watched a clip of the most disgraceful television program, one of the most disgraceful I've ever seen, to suggest law and disorder should be ashamed of themselves. In fact, whoever wrote this should be fired. The producers should be fired. It is an absolute disgrace. Nowhere in the history has a white woman ever been raped by a black man seriously or even allegedly, to where that white woman felt so compelled that she had white privilege that this black man or black youth should not be tried. In fact, I would say to law and order, you jackasses, this is not a subject to even play with. You know how many black men have been lynched in this country, murdered in this country, just off the basis of a lie of supposedly raping a white woman? In Rosewood, Florida, that same lie was told. Black men raped a white woman. They killed the whole black neighborhood, men, women, children, and babies. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the same lie. We just had a movie produced about Emmett Till and how he was lynched and murdered for just whistling at a white woman, flirting with a white woman. And Law and Order had the nerve to produce an episode with such a goddamn lie about a white woman refusing to prosecute a black teenager who raped her because she has white privilege and resources that allows her to get therapy and help. This is a disgrace. That's an absolute lie.
Well, but I mean, you talk about the horrible past of American history, where absolutely that black accused, not guilty and guilty, were subjected to extrajudicial lynchings, terror, and then just black people around them, right? Horrible, horrible, in a disgrace. But we're not talking about, I mean, I know you want to, but we're not talking about 80 or 90 years ago. We're talking about 2020s America. And in fact, this is a widespread belief in far left, white, liberal progressivism that you shouldn't have people prosecuted for crime, even violent crime, black offenders, because they didn't experience privilege. And the problem with that math, right, is that one, this assumption that every white person is born with some sort of obligation or guilt just because of the color of their skin. It's a disgusting thought, right? It'd just be, you know, the suggestion that every white person is privileged no matter what their economic background. There are people that would argue a black child born into a rich family is less privileged than a white child born into Kentucky. There's a county in Kentucky that is the poorest in America, and it's 99% white, right? It's insane. But it's this new bigotry of this moment in American history. And the new bigotry is directed at, hey, like you do, like just in the last segment, when you were talking about white folk generally. If I were to talk about black people generally, one, I wouldn't do it because it's disgusting bigotry, but you do it constantly and there's no consequence to you because you're a bigot, but you're allowed to be a bigot. Oh, okay, yes, you spoke fact. When you speak about any
historical
group,
and present facts.
When you speak about any group that is defined only by an immutable characteristic, whether it's the color of their skin, whether it's their religion, whether it's their family status, whether it's anything that people are born into that they can't change, or a group like religion you're typically born into as well, that is just bigotry. And it's got to the point where the empowerment theory, when the 50s and the 60s and 70s, it made sense. It no longer makes sense
Charles,
in America.
but I'm not talking about
You're
that, Charles.
being a racist.
Right now it's
and
still happening, Charles.
Law and order is being racist. What's happening in America right now is
That
white
is
people
being racist.
are being fed the lie
what about the Central
that
Park
they
jogger?
should be treated differently.
The Central Park jogger wasn't 80, 90 years ago.
Okay, the Central Park jogger. Would you like
and
to
those
talk about
young
that?
men were falsely convicted on the basis of a lie.
Those young men, I know you just watched the Netflix movie and thought it was real. Those young men were accused and convicted wrongfully of committing a sexual assault that DNA proved other people did, that another man did. Now there is some question, because it was the old administration with New York that settled it. There were a great number of people that questioned, because the fact there were confessions of involvement, there were confessions of those exact men.
And how were they?
Of those exact
they were forced confessions.
Of those exact men,
which was common practice in America at that time.
They called it wilding back then, but it was a night of violence where young black youths were going through Central Park and attacking and beating strangers up.
Allegedly.
No, that happened.
That ain't no fact.
No, that actually is a fact.
Let me tell you something about black folk. They know better in New York than to take your behind in Central Park committing crimes like that.
Okay.
In numbers, no.
I get that
that
you just want to lie.
That's
but the
BS,
truth
Charles.
is, all of those gentlemen were involved in crime that night, violent crime. They just weren't involved in this rape.
And they were convicted for it.
Okay, right. And
what
I
about
think that's wrong.
What about in
but
Texas?
Again, that was in the late 80s.
What about in Houston, Texas?
Okay,
Josiah Sutton.
Okay.
Josiah Sutton did 5 years.
I get that you want to talk
just
about
because a white girl said he looked like the man who raped her and did 5 years.
In fact, sexual assault is the...
And that was in the 90s.
Okay. So again, sexual assault is the crime that most people are wrongfully convicted, although outcries, dishonest outcries, are probably between 6 and 2%. They're very rare, but they do absolutely occur, and people are absolutely wrongfully convicted, and that's horrible. It happens to white people, it happens to black people, it happens to all people.
What about Kobe Bryant?
If a woman accused...
What about Kobe Bryant?
It's horrible.
That wasn't 80 and 90 years ago.
Again, that was a horrible,
Come on, man.
horrible money-grabbing
I'll
allegation.
call the roll on you, brother.
Well, Justice Prevailed. I know you want to call the roll, and I know you want to talk about yesteryear because you don't want to talk about today.
Sure,
but
this is
today,
recent stuff.
white people are being told. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez went on TV and said, oh no, this looting is okay because they're just trying to feed their children. They called it mostly peaceful protests, right? Where we saw violent protests where black businesses were robbed and burned out, where black neighborhoods were destroyed, and the cops stood there and did not a damn thing under this dishonest, false narrative. And just like this, if someone commits a rape, they need to have a consequence. It's not a crime about sex, it's a crime about violence. And I don't care if the victim is a white woman, a black woman, a gay man, or whoever it is.
But this is an absolute BS story. We know this ain't happening in America.
It is happening. It is.
Well, white women don't want to prosecute because they got white privilege.
Yes, it's a
You out
discussion
your
point.
damn mind.
It is happening
So
all over
white
liberal
women
white
let
America.
black men get away with crimes because they're afraid they got white privilege.
Stupid far left, I'm a centrist. I don't like Republicans, I don't like Democrats, but I don't like extremists, right? And what you have is these far left progressives pushing this notion of that
I
privilege.
believe some
liberal
thought off white person wrote this.
Right? Oh no doubt.
No doubt, I believe
this is
that.
white liberal stupidity. So
I've been there. And by the way, we're promoting her posthumously to sergeant.
Oh wow, that is the best news I've heard today. Thank you so much. You don't know how much that means to us.
Oh, well, I tell you what, it means a lot to me. My son spent a year in Iraq. That's how I lost him. And 1% of...
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
we began this episode with a narcissist, and we're ending it with the narcissist in chief, our senile president, who wants to make everything about him. That everything's got to be, no matter how the tragedy, no matter what's going on, Joe Biden can find a way to make it about him. Now, Donald Trump, he can do the same damn thing, right? This isn't me just criticizing one of them, but this is time for criticizing Joe Biden. He's talking to an African-American mother of one of the victims of the Iranian-backed terrorist attack on an American base in the Middle East. Last week on our local segment, you were sticking up for Iran. That was before we knew it was black soldiers, right? But you were fully on Iran's side and saying, oh, who knows? Everyone's lying. It's not the evil, crazy Islamist terrorist, right? But here is the family, the brokenhearted family who lost the life of their child faithfully serving this country because of a Pearl Harbor style sneak attack with a drone. And it's absolutely disgusting that instead of being the president and consoling them and making sure they know that they're not going to die in vain and that there will be justice for these soldiers, instead he talks about him. Now, Beau Biden did serve his country faithfully for 15 years. He didn't see a lot of action being the son of one of the most powerful senators. He didn't see a lot of action, but he was near a burn pit at one point. And Joe Biden, 5 or 6 years ago, his story was, yeah, no, the burn pit exposure might have been what caused my son's cancer. But there's no causal link specifically, especially with that type of cancer. And there's been no established causation, and he wasn't exposed to the burn pits to the extent that many American soldiers that have had downstream horrible, fatal conditions because of those burn pits. Because Joe has to make everything about Joe. And Joe's family, they've had some tragedies, right? There was a horrible car accident where he had his first wife killed along with a child, right? And there's been stories for years about how the man who was prosecuted for it, because Joe was powerful back then as well, wasn't really at fault for the accident. But Joe, when he first ran for office, was plagiarizing people's speeches, and he got pushed out when he first ran for the president.
The victims
I'm talking about Joe Biden, because the victims, I'm brokenhearted for them.
Okay.
Those wonderful Americans the wonderful Americans,
'Cause you're
and it
losing
should have
me
been
now.
it should have been their moment. No, you don't want to talk about Joe because you and Joe's lap.
Let's talk about
right?
Joe.
Joe has been lying about everything. There was a clip where Joe was lying about his education. There was a clip when Joe was lying about being
Joe.
accepted to one of the military academies when it was a complete lie.
It is
This guy has been lying his whole damn life, and to lie
Let's
to this
talk about
poor
Joe.
woman is By the way, hey, I don't know if you noticed, you're interrupting me again. I know that you like
You've
to
been
cry.
talking for 10 minutes.
I haven't been talking for 10 minutes. You don't shut
You're
up.
talking for 10
But hey,
minutes.
go ahead. Let's hear how wonderful Joe is. I bet you changed your
I
tack.
am no fan of Joe Biden.
Oh,
In fact, I believe that Joe Biden is nothing more than a secret racist. And the
he's not a
documents-
secret racist.
and the
He's an open
documents
racist.
prove that
I
this
don't want
man
to end
has
desegregation.
racist comments and made racist jokes about black people for generations.
What did he say about
Let
black
me
people
finish,
in
though.
public schools in
We'll
the
get there
70s?
because you're the same way. Let me finish.
Yeah,
Now,
I'm the same
what
way.
I'm upset about
I
in this
went to
particular
public
segment
schools.
is it is a proven documented fact, Charles, that the United States has withheld information and kept secret that a lot of their military servicemen and women were infected at many of these military bases in America and overseas. It is a proven fact that America infected their own military men and women with Agent Orange spraying during Vietnam. It is a proven fact.
Bo wasn't
And I
during Vietnam.
sympathize with this father, Joe Biden, in this case, to where he believes, as a former senator, former VP, now president, that he has searched and looked deeply into what caused his son's cancer, and he believes it was what took place when he was in service and military in Iraq for a year. But also, it is a proven fact that the United States government's military will carry out secret experimentations against its own citizens and military men and women. That's a proven fact.
Do you think they did that to
But
Bo Biden?
I don't
Or
know.
do you think the
I
son
will
of the
say this.
powerful vice president,
I will be honest
because
with
he was
you.
vice president when he was in
Let me
Iraq,
say
I
this.
believe, do
Just
you
because
think that
his
he was
father-
exposed to anything?
Let me finish. Just because his father was so powerful, it might have been Bo Biden's decision to prove to his fellow comrades and fellow military men, servicemen, and women that he was just like them and that he was no better. Just because you have a powerful family member, a father or mother, does not mean that you want to prove to your constituents that you're no better than them. So he probably volunteered to do the
Constituents, he
same
never
exact
ran for
work.
office.
When I say constituents, I mean those who he worked with and served with, service military men and women.
Colleagues was the word
and
you
so
were
his
looking for.
comrades probably wanted to see him do the same thing that they were doing, and he probably did that and got infected. But it's a fact. Look at Camp Lejeune. Right now,
horrible.
Camp Lejeune, they're selling lawsuits, filing lawsuits all over the place.
Yes.
For thousands were infected, and the United
I
States
don't
military
disagree.
government knew this.
I don't disagree.
The government knew it.
I don't
So
disagree.
I cannot say Mr. Biden is wrong in this context.
But
he very well
don't
may
you
have
think
lost
that,
his son.
I knew you were
because
drinking the
of that.
Biden Kool-Aid. Don't you think that conversation should have been about that girl's loss? I mean, that woman's loss, about the loss of her child. Shouldn't it have
was.
been? No. It was Biden saying,
No,
"Oh,
he
me
said,
too."
"I sympathize
Biden
with
was
you.
saying, "Me too."
I understand
Biden
what
has
you're
to
going
make
through.
everything about
I,
Biden
too, have
because
lost
he's
a
a
child.
senile.
What he was saying is,
senile
I too
coward.
have lost a child.
No, he didn't.
And I hope
No, he
and
didn't.
pray
He
that
lost
I
two
never have to
children,
sit in
and
the
it's
seat
heartbreaking.
of Joe Biden,
It's heartbreaking.
Of Joe Biden,
It's
or
heartbreaking.
this family
but he
in losing
didn't
a
die
child.
in Iraq,
Have
and
some
he
sympathy,
didn't die
man.
during his service.
Have some sympathy,
I'm not
man.
having sympathy. Joe
He
needs to
lost a
stop
child
lying.
in military service
No,
like
he
they
didn't.
did.
Joe needs to stop being such a damn liar.
No, stop. Have more sympathy, man. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a proven fact that military servicemen and women in this country were secretly infected with some of the worst forms of cancer and toxins known to man. It is also a documented fact that this military and this government is so wicked, it will even carry out these experiments on its own citizens, like the Tuskegee experiment. The United States military was responsible for that. They went and they just recently admitted, just several months ago, that the United States government carried out secret medical experiments in prisons on black soldiers. So for Mr. Biden to say what he said, he can relate to the loss of a child who was a serviceman or woman in the line of duty. In his mind, his son was infected. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt about that. Beyonce should receive that award. She is Queen Bee, the most talented and most accomplished female artist of our time. Jay-Z was right. She deserves that award. Law and disorder, you should be ashamed of yourself. Ain't no black man or woman in America buying that BS shit lie that if a black man, teenager or adult, rapes a white woman, she not gonna prosecute because she quote unquote has white privilege. Some crazy ass white liberal wrote that segment.
You know, Joe Biden, and then let me predicate this. I'm no Trump guy, right? I think Donald Trump is a horrible liar, and I don't think either of them should be the damn president. But Joe Biden has spent his entire career shifting with political winds and telling dishonest stories. His current wife, there is whispers out there that he stole her from his best friend, and that's coming from the guy that lost her. There is just an entire lifetime. You know, he was anti-desegregation and referred to African Americans in the worst possible way in the 70s, and somehow he evolved. But the truth is he didn't evolve. The guy's just a liar. And his family has known tragedy, right? His two living children, they're absolutely tragic. They're both horrible drug addicts who have never known consequences, right? Just like Joe Biden has never known consequences. Joe Biden turns everything into the prism of self. And that moment, that very special moment, that horrible, heartbreaking moment, should have been all about that African-American family that had suffered that horrible, horrible tragedy that was the result of an evil Islamist attack on an American base. An Islamic attack that, I'll tell you, my opponent stuck up for just last week on TV. Joe Biden should be ashamed, but he's not capable of shame.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.